Welcome to another episode of 12th Level Intellects, hosted by the Watchtower Database. I'm Ted Kendrick. With me today is Matthew Manning, writer of the best-selling series Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures from IDW, DC, and Nickelodeon. Thanks for joining me, Matthew. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Issue number 1 just came out at the beginning of November and surprisingly sold out 2 weeks in advance, which is awesome. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I really enjoyed the first issue and glad that it's already got a second printing. That's so cool. I know you've been writing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for IDW at least over the last year, and you've got a first volume that just went to trade.
Yeah, for the Amazing Adventures?
I think so.
Yeah.
Is that the same incarnation that we see in the series?
Yeah.
I'm not much of a Ninja Turtles fan, I hate to admit. Yeah.
Well, it was the same. The original series that they did to tie into the 2012 Nickelodeon series was New Animated Adventures.
Okay.
And so I started writing for that first, and I did about maybe 6 or so issues, and then they stopped that series and started over with it's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Amazing Adventures.
Gotcha.
And so they did that. I want to say 14 issues, and now they've stopped that series because now they're just focusing on the Batman Ninja Turtles.
It was a great first issue. I really enjoyed it. And particularly great to see the animated Batman return to comics. It's been a long time since we've seen that version. And I know that's definitely what our viewers and readers on our site have come here for. You know, it's the Bruce Timm version of Batman. Is that your favorite incarnation of Batman? Or do you, if you were to pick like any version of Batman or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like over the years, do you gravitate towards the most?
That's a tricky question for...
I know, especially since you're writing these versions of them.
Well, and I'm also a lifetime Batman fan and Turtles fan, really. So, but this is actually my favorite incarnation of the Turtles, the television show.
Nice.
It captures like all the good qualities from all the other series. So you have kind of that serious tone from the Eastman Laird original series, but then you have the fun aspects from the 87 show that actually really work, like the different color headbands really works. Right. You know, the like characters like Bebop and Rocksteady, which everybody loves, so we have that in this too. And then I think the origin is very well done. They've changed the origin so many times. Like I like the current IDW comic series, but I'm not crazy about the reincarnation theme that keeps going on. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the idea is that they were all, like, Master Splinter was their father, and they were all boys years ago, and then they were all murdered, and now they've been reincarnated as Splinter and the Turtles. Oh. Which, it's a very interesting idea, and I've really enjoyed the comics, but it's not exactly my favorite. Like, I like more of the simpler, like what the Turtles series went with, which was just kind of like, you know, Turtles in a jar, guy that's really good, you know, at martial arts, and then, you know, they all get mutated kind of thing, which I think is more, it's just like anytime you can kind of cut off any excess fat and like really, you know, get right to the heart of the matter, I think that's always best. And also the 2012 show is genuinely funny, which is, I have 2 daughters, so I've watched a lot of both shows with my daughters, and the 87 show is fun for me nostalgic wise, but it's genuinely not really funny. It's just kind of, I guess it was very much about selling toys, and like those concepts blew me away as a kid because I was introduced to it through the cartoon, so that was kind of like, what, this is crazy, they're all named after Renaissance painters, this is the best thing in the world. But then but now, you know, as an adult, like I kind of like the more sophisticated plots that they do in the show, and they're also a lot, like, I genuinely laugh out loud, where my daughters are kind of like, why is he laughing? I don't know. And they do parodies of things like the Aliens franchise, and they like on all these some horror things that are really not appropriate for my daughters this young.
I noticed a couple parodies in your issue actually, like the sewer scene where it seems like you're kind of going for a Star Wars like trash compactor sequence.
Oh yeah, is that on purpose? That was definitely in my head. I didn't want it to be too close to it, but I kind of, when Mikey's pulled underground, it's kind of all, you know, homage to that. I think
someone says like, I had a bad feeling about this or something.
Yeah. I do the homage to the 89 Batman right away. We open with that scene, tell all your friends about me kind of scene, and then, well, there's definitely more coming for the other issues. And actually, I got a note. Well, yeah, I got a note from Nickelodeon saying, "Well, these are cool homages to the Batman stuff. Do you have any? Like, let's do some Turtle stuff." And I'm like, "No, don't worry, you guys." But yeah, so that was a long-winded answer about the Turtles.
Right.
For Batman, I don't know about my favorite. I love the animated series. I think what it plays on really well is it uses the Bronze Age Batman. A lot of those stories are actually adapted from comics, like Moon of the Wolf and
Demon's Quest was even written by Dennis
O'Neil.
Same guy who wrote the original.
Yeah, and it was very similar, especially that one with the whole tricking you to think, you know, like Race is on his side, and at the end is a twist. It was identical to it. And there's also Cape and Cow Conspiracy, and there's all these other Bullet for Bullock was another one that was I think that was a Chuck Dixon story. And so there's all these issues that were adapted directly. So I think it was pulling some of the best parts of the comics, but I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite. I think just probably probably post-crisis Batman up until all the reinventions recently. It was probably my favorite era, because that was kind of, especially when Grant Morrison was doing the RIP stuff, he was kind of saying like every story counts, every story matters, and so all those 1950 stories all of a sudden were in continuity, but they were maybe like a drug trip, or they were something. I wrote a book called The Batman Files that came out in 2011, and I wrote an afterword about like using that every story counts idea. For the Batman Files, it was like, what if Batman kept a scrapbook of his life from start to finish? And the idea was, we're counting every story. We're counting stories with Batmite. We're counting stories, with Batwoman and the original Batgirl, but we're making it all fit into one continuity. Everything happened. So that's, I guess, kind of that like amalgamated Batman's my favorite, like all that together.
All the enriched history, and you get to see it build and evolve. And
like, I've written over 50 books, and it's my favorite book that I've written, just because it does do that. It doesn't ever say like, oh, this particular writer's story doesn't matter. But yeah, it's hard to pick because I have so many. I love the 89 Batman, 66 Batman, so there's really very little Batman that does wrong with me. I'm even a fan of...
They're all so good in their different ways.
Well, I even liked the Batman show, which was so, like, actually people warmed up to it about season 5 and they ended it.
Right.
It's like,
Exactly.
Or season 4 maybe people really started warming up, because they realized, oh, this isn't the Bruce Timm Batman. This is its own thing. I love some of the designs for it, and I started writing the Batman Strikes, the tie into that, with issue 10. Even when I was writing it, I was kind of still like a holdout for Batman the Animated Series, like, oh, I love Batman, I'm just gonna write my own Batman story. But then when I started writing later issues, they started more and more relating to that world, because I started seeing the merits of it, which I think has kind of been unfairly judged over the years. But,
right, yeah.
But I think when Batman Brave and the Bold came out, people were like, oh, this is different. We could like this. It was kind of like, I think the Batman was maybe a little too close, to Batman the Animated Series, because it was still serious in its own way. When Batman Brave and the Bold came out, people were like, oh, this is silly. We can like this because we like the 60s show. And it's like...
The Brave and the Bold is a nice reminder that you can do so many different things with Batman.
And that's another thing I'll never understand about fandom, is that if you loved Young Justice, you have to hate Teen Titans Go, and that doesn't make any sense. They're so different. Like,
well, Young Justice, it's coming back with the season 3.
Oh yeah, I heard about that, which is great. It just kind of shows that you can have these,
you can have it
more
all.
than one world, like, because Teen Titans Go is genuinely funny. Like, it's really funny. It's my daughter's favorite cartoon, so I've seen every episode way more than I would want to watch. And this is a guy that's obsessed with Batman.
Right.
This is more than I'd want to watch.
So the end of your first issue ends with Joker and Harley popping up at the end, and I don't want you to spoil anything major for issue 2, but you're gonna take that same kind of like everything matters approach and like show some different sides of the Joker that we've in Harley that we've seen in other medium, like maybe some Suicide Squad or Dark Knight sort of references.
Well, actually, I mean, I haven't really applied that towards this, because I'm very much in the Bruce Timm kind of Paul Dini world, where everything. John is drawing it for us, and he's
John's Samariva,
Samariva, I think.
okay,
which I was saying earlier that he's from Australia, and we talk a lot, but I've never heard his name pronounced in real life, so I hope I'm not butchering it.
Hopefully it's not wrong. But he's your artist on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Batman Adventures book.
Yeah, and he's been great. His style really lends towards both series, where it's very much the lively Turtles, but it's not perfect on model Bruce Timm, but it's not supposed to be. It's kind of like a blend. Yeah, it's like instead of trying to make his style fit two different styles, he's kind of making those styles fit his.
Definitely love that Two-Face page. I thought that was one of his best, but that design is so crisp. Like, it's one of the best Two-Face versions.
Although I think people are, again, the anti-Teen Titans Go people are mad that I put in there is a Pretty Pegasus reference. He's watching a My Little Pony type show.
Yes.
And actually DC had reservations about it too. They're like, why would he be watching this? And I'm like, well, he's watching.
He's flipping back and forth.
Yeah, he's watching War, and he's watching like the opposite. We actually said the title Pretty Pegasus in the original draft, and DC was like, I don't know if that's been established in this world. And I was like, well, like, I'm of the opinion that the original Teen Titans series happens in the same universe as Batman the Animated Series, but earlier.
Okay.
Of Dick Grayson before he becomes
that's
the
definitely
Robin.
A point of contention, and we have a video on the Watchtower Database all about that, so we'll probably link to it right here.
I know there's a lot of people that are against that theory, but I always thought it kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm sure their adventures are a little bit more far-fetched than Batman the Animated Series, but also, Batman the Animated Series turned Selina into a giant cat at one point, so they had their own sci-fi. DC suggested, well, let's have them watch Teen Titans Go, and I'm like, this is how, much of a continuity guy. I'm like, well, they still refer to them by their real names. I'm like, the public can't know Dick Grayson's Robin, so they can't watch. It's more like a My Little Pony show is the opposite of War more than Teen Titans is anyway, and I wanted to kind of show that Two-Face theme. It's very on model as far as Joker's voice, I think, for the show. Like, I wrote a book called The World According to the Joker, which was an advice book by Inside Editions that they published, but it was all in Joker's voice. At the time, I was given the option, do you want to write the Batman one or do you want to write the Joker one? And I just written the Batman files, and I said, no, I want to write someone else's voice completely. I want to do something different.
Yeah, of course.
Unlike Batman, where I have this own idea of what Batman sounds like in my head that's not influenced by Kevin Conroy or Michael Keaton or anybody, where it's like I read the Batman that I've read since I was a kid. But Joker is always Mark Hamill's voice. I do a very bad Mark Hamill impression as I'm writing, the comic, like reading it out loud, where if my family can hear me, in the other rooms of the house, they're probably like, why is he going crazy?
Yeah, exactly. At least he's making money.
Yeah. And originally, I didn't have as many scenes planned for Harley, but Harley is such a popular character right now. It's kind of like, well, I bet a lot of people are going to read this because they want to see classic Harley.
Right.
And it would be kind of bad if I didn't include, more scenes of her. So she has a couple extra scenes that she wouldn't otherwise, just because. And also, I love, Arlene Sorkin's voice for the character. I don't know if I ever told you my Mark Hamill story, but it was his, I want to say son or daughter, I'm not sure. They were applying to go to my school, which was the School of Visual Arts where I went to college. And I'm in my dorm room, and my friend Farrell pounds on my door. He's like, hey, Mark Hamill is in the lobby of our school right now. I'm like, what? And so I get over there, and he's been bombarded by all these film students.
Of course.
And they all have, he's signing all sorts of Star Wars stuff. Some kid actually has one of those, 3 3/4 Star Wars figures. It has him sign on the leg of it. I had the only thing that I had that was related to Batman the Animated Series in my dorm room, because I had nothing in my dorm room. It was a very small. So I had a copy of Batman Mask of the Phantasm. And I brought that, and I was like, "Oh, could you sign this?" And people were like, "Why would he sign that? That's Luke Skywalker,
right?
moron." And he was like, "I'm the voice of the Joker." And they're like, "What?" And no one was aware that he was the voice of the Joker. And I said, "Could you do the voice for us?" And he did this whole it's Joker here, and this whole, and it was amazing to see him actually, because at that point there had been no interviews that I'd seen, at least online. I've never could wrap my head around this other childhood actor that I love doing Joker. And then when you saw it in real life, it was like, whoa, this is crazy. He actually is the Joker.
Yeah.
And I've met him several times since, but that was the first,
Of course, yeah.
And he was so happy to sign something Batman. People were like, what? You've done something else since 1983 or whenever.
And now he's so well known for the Joker.
That was interesting because when I was a kid, I was more into the minor characters. So when a Joker episode was like, oh, another Joker episode. It wasn't ever exciting. There were some amazing Joker episodes afterwards. But then there was also some with where he buys the robot Captain Clown, which
exactly.
It's
Captain
he
Clown.
spends so much money on Captain Clown and then just robs jewelry stores.
Captain Clown.
I remember Ra's al Ghul was my favorite character forever, and then he became this huge villain in Batman Begins, so everybody kind of knows him. But Signal Man or Black Spider, all these minor characters I've always loved, or Calendar Man,
Ten-Fingered Man,
or
Ten-Eyed. Yeah.
Well, I actually one of my first comics,
Man,
I did
everybody.
It was a Batman 2010 special or something that they did. It was and I did a story about the Calendar Man, because they're like, oh, what do you want to use the main villain? And when I was talking to him, and I was like, no, I want to go as obscure as possible.
Yeah.
I want to kind of do and that was the first time they've ever done the origin of the Calendar Man. I got to do a little bit, kind of hinting at his origin,
nice.
Which is a lot of fun. But yeah, I've always kind of gravitated towards these minor obscure characters. I did this Joker is trying to escape by using the elevator at the play.
Huh.
And my wife used to work at Broadway, and so those elevators move super slow, and it's ridiculous. You couldn't escape that way. And so there's a scene, which is my favorite scene in that comic, where it's just Joker slowly lowering. It's a moment to moment panel where Batman and Robin, he's like, see you later. It's escaping, and then Batman and Robin just standing there, and he's just slowly lowering down. And then he's like, I thought this was a lot faster than it was. And then they just knock him out, and that's the end of the comic. But I was like, I get it now. This is the best character to write in comics. We have a huge cast, so we have to use every page. I have to put way too much.
You got 4
on
Ninja
it.
Turtles.
Yeah.
You got all the supporting cast, because I'm sure you're trying to squeeze every single supporting character you can in both series. Yeah,
and we have to spotlight April a little bit, and Batgirl and Robin and Batman. So it's kind of getting everybody in there, and then we're putting in a ton of villains in.
Yeah, and Alfred in this first issue, that was probably my favorite page of the whole thing.
The thing I don't get to do is I don't get to do Commissioner Gordon at all.
Oh, really?
And so
how come?
It's all the people going into New York.
Okay.
So we don't have Commissioner Gordon going there, and I'm just I wanted to work in a scene with him, but it just didn't. It wasn't natural that first issue, so I could get Alfred in. What's interesting about Alfred is that there was never really sarcastic Alfred until Dark Knight Returns,
okay,
which is another like that comic is amazing in so many ways, but people have read it so many, like all these all the tropes in it are like played out now. It's like all these like things, or they become tropes, I should say. And like, but and Sarcastic Alfred is one of those things that came out of there. I think Batman the Animated Series really built on that, where they're like, oh yeah, let's make this guy kind of a wise ass to because it's such a good foil for Batman. Actually, it was tricky because that Clayface scene was originally going to be a Killer Croc scene.
I thought that I was setting it up for Killer Croc being in a sewer.
But they did that in the other series, in the actual, and since it was like a year ago, it's like, oh man, I can't do that. So in Clayface was ended up being more fun and like, kind of worked better, and then I got to do that, have Mikey call him Mudbutt, which I was very excited about.
That was perfect.
Because that made my daughters laugh a lot. So they're when you write them, all these other like you have to kind of peel away things that don't really help the story move along.
Right.
And this series was just a lesson in that for me, constantly like, oh, take out this joke that I love because there's not enough room for it.
I wonder if this was a thing. In Arkham Asylum, you have a page where you've got all the villains' names on the doors, like Jervis Tetch. But for the Joker, it's Joker, the.
Yeah.
You didn't want to do Jack Napier?
I actually talked about it. This was in the script. There's a note saying, in the animated series, he's actually called Jack Napier. And
very briefly.
Yeah, it's on a door. It's actually on an Arkham door. And I said, they call him that. I forget what episode it is. Maybe a Scarecrow episode?
I think it might have been Dream and Darkness or something.
I remember like as a kid being like, whoa, they're going with the movie name for him, because that was his alter ego in the movie. And I was like, they never used that in the comics. And they said, you know what, let's just go safe and just call him, the Joker. If it was up to me, I would have called him Jack Napier just because the anime as a nod to the old series. But it's one of those things that's kind of out of your control. Like, okay, even in Mask of the Phantasm, when they had an opportunity to name him as a thug for, Yeah,
he's always just a faceless. And you see him before, the Joker accident.
And I have friends that are not happy with the Mask of the Phantasm Joker sequences because of the killing joke idea that Joker was innocent. Like he was just kind of this silly comedian that had to do this to help his family, and making him a mob, like Hitman kind of.
Yeah, it's, of course the Killing Joke origin is most fleshed out, but it's great.
But
like
even that, it
knowing
still could be a toss-up that might not have happened. As a kid, I had one comic store near me, and then it was the 90s, and so like two others sprouted up because everybody was opening a comic shop. But the one I went to was this place called Funny Farm, and it was 20-minute drive away, like by the airport in Ohio. And so they would sell everything at regular price. And then I remember it was Batman Legends of the Dark Knight where I discovered, like in the back of a comic where they have these ads, and it would be like 50 cents everything in this column and $1 for everything else. I was like, how could they sell them so cheap? Like I didn't understand these giant comic stores that bought all these
all the
comics. And had to sell them. So I remember buying like the first 20 issues of Batman Legends of the Dark Knight through them. And I remember my mom was very dubious of it too. She's like, I think this is a scam. And I was like, I don't think it's a scam.
And then when it comes true,
I think it's an ad. And then I just got these comics in the mail. And I remember it being like the best Saturday ever. James Robinson did amazing series with James Robinson and Tim Sale.
Yeah, Starman's one of my favorite. Oh man, I'd love to read that one.
They did it. It's called Blades. Okay. It was 3 issues they reintroduced a new version of the Cavalier.
Nice.
And the old swashbuckling character, which in Batman Files again, I was like, oh, this happened and the other version happened. It's kind of like
he's got a brief appearance in Batman Adventures Volume 2, the Dan Slott, Ty Templeton. Cavalier has a quick little mini
and
story.
See, I love those kind of characters because I remember On Leather Wings aired on a Sunday night and I missed it. So the first one I ever saw was a Saturday morning, which I feel like was the next week, but I'm not sure. It might have also been different depending on where you were. I mean, I was in very rural Ohio watching Fox Kids Club, taping everything on the VCR and. Those were like I would rush home from school every day to tape Batman the Animated Series.
Me too.
And then when it was a rerun, it was like the worst day of my life. I was like, oh no, I've seen the Sewer King episode.
Exactly.
I love it so. I'll watch it again now. Which I think they're embarrassed of the Sewer King episode. I think I read an interview where they hate that episode. I'm like, I love this episode. They killed the Sewer King in the comics in the miniseries 52. There's a scene where they're all, I think Bruno Mannheim or whatever, has this group of people or whatever, and there's like dead people around his table that disagreed with him, and one of the dead bodies is Sewer King.
Oh, is it really? I'm going to have to look back.
Yeah, there's just this panel, and I was like, I still love those kind of characters. That and Red Claw, and some of the characters haven't really been explored.
Yeah, the people who were introduced to the animated series who didn't quite break out, like characters like Harley Quinn and Lockup, and even Baby Doll still hasn't really had much to say past the series.
She's been in comics because they introduced Roxy Rocket. They put her in. Or like, I don't think anybody's going to do anything with Nostromos or whatever.
Or Farmer Brown.
Yeah. I don't think they're. I think DC Direct is doing, or Collectibles now is doing those animated series action figures.
Yeah.
I remember they were interviewing Jim Fletcher, and they're like, "What about Farmer Brown?" And he was like laughing at the idea because he's such a hated character.
They gotta have
I would
the
buy a
Condiment
Farmer
King.
Brown character. Oh yeah.
Condiment King, though, that's actually something that people would buy.
Well, see, there might be a Condiment King cameo. You have to wait for in Batman Turtles.
Nice, that's a scoop right there.
Yeah.
So after this series, what's next on the horizon for you, if you can talk about it?
There's some talk of more animated turtle stuff, but we can't talk about it yet officially.
Okay.
There's this app I've been writing for. It's called Amazon Rapids, and they just launched it, so I'm officially allowed to talk about it now. Where we're writing short stories for kids that are reading for the first time. Right now, the series is up from I think 7 to 12-year-olds, but they're looking at hopefully launching for older kids later. So I've been doing those in my spare time between Turtles, which has been kind of hectic. So
Yeah, probably a nice break though.
Yeah.
Since it's so short.
I'm proofreading right now History of the Bat Signal, and I said, well, let's do a History of the Bat Signal. And they're like, oh, you can't do a History of the Bat Signal. That's
You can.
And I was like, yeah, look at all these different versions. So we talk about everything from when the original stories about the old cop that was that used to operate the bat signal back in the day, to Gotham Central, where they had a certain person that could not be on the police payroll to operate the bat signal because it was against the against the law.
Sure, yeah.
Because they couldn't officially say that they're condoning Batman's activities. And we talk about like things like the Joker signal and the cat signal. I wrote this whole thing saying, well, we can write about all these stuff, and she's like, okay, you can write a book about this. I was like, oh. Which is fun for me because I've written a lot of Batman history books, and it's fun to focus on one thing. Like, I'm really hoping someone's going to hire me to write a book about Batman's costumes. I'd love to just focus in on like this one, and kind of like obsess over it in book form.
Yeah, that's another video we have on the Watchtower Database. We've got really? Batman's costumes through the animated universe.
Oh, okay.
Well, it sounds like you're very busy. Well, I'm looking forward to reading the rest of your series, Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, coming out.
We're talking about that. Yeah, we've got
right. Well, over the next
into
5 months or so, I believe
Yeah.
we have to expect it. Yeah. Well, Matthew, thank you for talking to me, and appreciate it. Looking forward to the rest of the series, and everyone who's listening, be sure to hit like and don't miss out on any more upcoming content from the Watchtower Database.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to another episode of 12th Level oh wow, I should turn that off before we go. That's always crucial.
Good start.
A great start.